So I have the honor of moderating our first panel for the night. It's about how platforms are designing for youth with safety, autonomy, and inclusion in mind. Next to me, we have Ava Smithing, the Director of Advocacy and Operations at the Young People's Alliance, which is a youth-led nonprofit focused on leveraging youth perspectives in legislative priorities. Next to her is Dr. Siva Mathiyazagan, who is a research assistant professor and associate director of strategies and impact at Safe Lab at the University of Pennsylvania. Next to him is Victoria McCullough, who leads TikTok's Trust and Safety Outreach Partnerships for the Americas. And next to her is Adele Taylor, who is a senior manager of youth digital programs and partnerships at Thorn, which is a nonprofit combating online sexual abuse material. Give them all a round of applause. So our first question for the night is going to be a scene-setting question. We know that online actions have implications for offline lives. So how do platforms design in a way that impacts its users? And then specifically in the context of youth, how does this affect their rights and their autonomy? Ava?
Right. First, hey, y'all. Thanks for coming and having us. I like this question. I think it sets me up to break it down into two different pieces. So first, you have the offline versus online life piece, and then you have the privacy and autonomy piece. So what we see with these platforms is that the way they design their products blur the line in between your offline and your online life. Young people digital natives who grew up and first started on social media when they were 11, 12 years old, even younger nowadays, their offline life cannot exist independently from their online life. And that's because of very intentional design features. You have basic things like design features that function on a variable reward schedule, algorithms that encourage addiction-like behavior. You have notifications that leave you constantly, when you're enjoying your offline life, that leave you constantly picking up your phone and looking for a moment to get sucked back into your online life. And then you also have mechanisms of social comparison, like likes, comments, shares, and even stories fall into this, that lead young people to be living their offline lives for their online lives. And I think that that's something that we don't necessarily talk about as much, as even the young people who don't get sucked down the eating disorder pipeline through an algorithm or aren't exposed to self-harm content. These young people are constantly under the pressure to show that they're having a good time, that they're enjoying their life, and that their life is worth seeing on social media. And they're not even just comparing that life with their friends and their peers, but I mean, we know from the Meta lawsuit, teenage girls on Instagram see 5 times as much content from popular users than they do from their friends and their peers. So they're not just having to post about their life and then compare it to their peers, but they also are posting about their lives and comparing it to people who get paid to monetize their content and get paid to make their lives look good. So I think when we're looking at privacy and autonomy, we have to think about how we can integrate those things into the core functions of a platform and allow people to be independent of social media and live an offline life as well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I know, Siva, you've had some experience with that work, so can you expand?
Thank you. Thanks for having me here. And hey, good evening. It's such a wonderful crowd. And there are like 3 distinct issues which I see young people, the platform design, how they impact on young people. One, addictive algorithm and its impact on mental health, as we discussed quite a lot. And the second element of it is more of the filter bubble, where the filter bubbles are the personalized content generations. When young people wanted to see more specific content, whatever they want to see, when you're giving them a more and more, they do not get to see the other perspectives, other worldviews. So they're not really intent to have diverse ideas. That design element, even when they're offline conversations, when they're having, their ideas are so stick to their own online content, whatever they have seen and ideas they get, and then the diversity and the perspective of inclusion, it's not there in this. And then the design elements of the online platforms need to be really shifted. And if that is not really like it's shifting, then it's continue to be causing more real world harm and biases in terms of having conversation with the people, as well as like producing much more bias and hate and violent issues. Yeah. And there's other part of it, like the privacy and autonomy side of it, the digital literacy. When the platforms are like the way the platforms are designed, it's all like a very quick. When young people are not even really some of the elements of the way platforms are designed, and then we do the one community guidelines and the privacy notifications, or like the privacy your policies, which then it's not very accessible, and then they're not really learning any of them, and they do not have aware of what to be posted and what not to be posted. And when they're not really that literacy and awareness is not there, they can't really make a more informed decision on the online platform. So how maybe the platforms can better educate them and then give them like a literacy opportunities, or like making the designs providing a much more youth accessible design, so that maybe like enable them to be much more aware of, make a much more informed decision about how to interact with the platforms.
Yeah, you're right on the money with that. For our next question, we're talking about the past few years and how parental platforms have expanded their parental guidance resources, and we're seeing varied rates of adoption for that. So, Victoria, to you, how have platforms thought about navigating this challenge in partnership with guardians, as opposed to putting the onus away from their level of accountability?
Yeah, no, thank you. And thanks, Sandra, for just organizing us tonight. A couple things for TikTok are, one, we see parents and caregivers as probably some of our most critical partners when it comes to education, working with them to educate and have conversations with their teens. And we also, part of our big mission with Trust and Safety Outreach, the team that I'm a part of, is really working with external voices, including parents and caregivers, including organizations like the Family Online Safety Institute, who talk to parents directly, and really leveraging and putting a microphone to some of those resources and making sure that they're available on our platform. I think the other thing is we can't stop there. And so a lot of it, based on what Ava and Dr. Siva has said tonight, is also around how we're working with external voices, teams directly, to design the platform, design products, and design features that are actually taking some of those safety concerns into mind, into the feature development. And so we do this in a number of different ways. A couple of our features I'll mention, I think are really dedicated to working with parents, is our family pairing feature, which is really there to allow parents access and to be able to kind of control and support their teen on TikTok. And we continue to enhance that. But a big part of it, to your point about adoption, is we've known in the last couple of years, we have got to educate parents and caregivers on the existence of those features and that they're available. And that's just been a big undertaking of ours. I think just in the last year, we put a huge investment in educating around that specific feature for parents, and have been able to reach, I think, over 400 million folks. And so we're continuing to see adoption. So I think awareness is rising. But at the end of the day, platforms do need to continue to work with parents and caregivers on what is most helpful for these conversations, but also, based on what was said in these previous questions, making sure we're continuing to design, have safety by design principles baked in from the get-go in these features.
Absolutely. And I know on the nonprofit side, Adele, Thorn has a similar resource hub. Could you share a bit about how that looks?
Yes, definitely. Hi, everyone. Oh, great crowd. A lot of you. Yeah, so I think I will just double back on what Victoria said. I think it's really important that we educate parents and we bring them along in the conversation. But I think the key word there is conversation. Too oftentimes, we're seeing a huge gap between youth and caregivers and parents. Their first reaction is, okay, well, you just can't be on that app, or I'm limiting this opportunity for you, without having those important conversations, not just about the youth's where they stand on that app or how they show up on that app, but just being a better digital citizen overall. And so I think for us at Thorn, it was really important that we tackled that gap, and we did so through building a resource hub, as you mentioned, called Thorn for Parents, that allows parents to go online and see, okay, this is my first time having a conversation, maybe with my 9-year-old, where do I even begin? And giving them scripts and dialogue, because that is key. It's not just about parental restrictions, it's not just about saying your child can't be on it, but really making sure you're having those important conversations, not just then at 9 years old, but at 13, at 15, and so on and so forth.
And I'll stay with you on that point. Adele, talking about cross-sector collaboration, where have you seen that be meaningful for Thorn? And tell us what has worked well and what the audience can take away from that.
Yes, definitely. Love cross-sector collaboration. It's like my favorite thing. I think for us at Thorn, it's really important that we are not just doing our own research, which is amazing, but we're having conversations with the platforms. We are situating ourselves with law enforcement and other companies and policy people that, can really give us a full, well-rounded picture. And one of the things that I love at No Filter as our youth brand within Thorn is that we get a chance to work with all of these different companies that are very much in the hands of youth, so to speak. One of them is actually with TikTok. We did this, I think, last year. It's been so long, you guys. But it was last year, and it was an amazing opportunity. We had 3 workshops, I think they were about 90 minutes in length each, that really gave youth an opportunity, one, to see, hey, there are people within tech that are here dedicated to your well-being that want you to have a better online experience, but that also gave them the autonomy to say, hey, this is just what's not working on this platform. And we did a lot. We talked about digital wellness. We talked about how they want to show up when it comes to reporting and what they need from blocking features. I know that was a lot really useful for TikTok moving forward. We talked a lot from policy to product people to the regular trust and safety people. And I think when it comes to youth, there is this notion that, oh, they're not really sure, or they have too many ideas that we can't implement. But I think one of the key features is really just starting a conversation and seeing where it goes.
Yeah, I want to highlight a couple of things Adele said, because this was by far one of the most meaningful partnerships TikTok Trust and Safety has had in the last couple of years, and it was for a few reasons. But one is that I think it within Trust and Safety, and I think especially within our own TikTok team, is that this landscape is just changing all the time. Like there are new challenges, new threats, and so we have to always be in a place that we're listening and learning all the time on all the things. And what we found in working with Thorn and with these No Filter workshops is we were actually talking directly to youth. And so we had our policy and product teams in these sessions hearing directly from these concerns. And it was by far also some of the most actionable feedback. I know if folks work in this space, sometimes we often are brought lots of challenges and insights, but we're always looking for ways to brainstorm solutions. And in many cases, these teams were really helping not only surface the challenges that they had, but also being, sharing with us, hey, have you ever thought about changing the feature so it does this? And it just, it was awesome to see from an outreach perspective internally after our policy and product teams were like, wow, this is some of the best conversations that we had. And I think a lot of that had to do with the work Thorn did to really design and bring youth to the table, but also really help us in making sure that those conversations were really thoughtful and gave voice, I think, to a lot of the concerns so that we could, on a trust and safety side, take that back and really make change. So it was great. And I do want to highlight Adele's really pioneering, I think, some of the work that I think we'll continue to see really influence the rest of the industry.
Completely +1 highlighting Adele for anything, so.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Am I writing my name on the back wall now?
Please do, please do. Like I own the place. But yeah, what I'm hearing is there's definitely a need for tangible ways to translate young people's principles into the design and implementation of these platform safety initiatives. And I know, Dr. Siva, this has an implication for how it can look for historically marginalized youth and the global majority. Could you expand on that?
Sure, thank you. So in my last 3 years, I've been very closely working with youth in Philly and New York City, particularly a lot of Black and brown youth, when we want to design a product for them. And we organize, like, it's not a 1 or 2 sessions, we organize them like, there are like a couple of new learnings for us when we organize them. One, who we are bringing in to the table. So most of the young people are most marginalized, and then they never, even more, some of them are like not really having a proper internet connection, but they have a smartphone, but they use it, and they don't know really how to even engage in a virtual conversation. So the pandemic situations. So when we engage them, the whole complete design is all around what they really care about and what is really uh, affects the community. So that's where like we brought a concept of culturally responsive design mechanisms. So what is really works for my culture in terms of like what I consume, what I talk, and what I interact with the people, and then how the platform could culturally responsive to us. So one of the product which we built was Interpret Me. Often young people post online has been misunderstood, and that's leading them to a pipeline to prison, and then like a lack of job opportunities for them. And there is various levels of offline consequences was created to the young people. Then they said, okay, if somebody is misunderstanding, they do not have a cultural context of what we really expressing it. So then how we can bring that cultural context to the when we are designing the platform. So that's where like we build every stage of it. Like one of the other unique way we were trying to do is having a like academic people, particularly the professors from the design and computer science, and social worker, psychologist, and the psychiatrist together along with the community of young people, and sitting together and co-designing for like a 12 weeks continuously to shape the platform, how the platform should look like. And that's where we were able to really bring the transdisciplinary knowledge and ensuring the well-being and safety of the young people and culturally relevant for them. And the other challenge which one other way we are working with the young people in India, and most of the platforms are designed here, and the online safety and the digital citizenship, it's nowhere closer to them at all. They, like, even if you do something, then what's gonna really affect them? So there, like, we need to design a platforms where we can educate them on like how you can ensure your own safety in terms of what to be posted, and then how you can engage in the online platforms, and what is your digital citizenship would look like, and amplifying the voices, particularly in India. Like here, there are a lot of, even when there is like harmful content is coming up, they are not really culturally contextual and sensitive towards, like, because we have like talk a lot about here on the race and racial equity, but the caste-based discrimination and then caste-related issues are popping up on online platforms. It's not really, there is no way to even report it on the online platforms. So then there is no autonomy or like even the privacy for them to deal with those things. So when we work with the local young people there, then like we can able to build the platform, design the platform, and develop and deploy it along with the young people. That could bring a two major insights for us. One, make sure that the platforms can, when you're listening more and more to the young people from the marginalized communities, the platforms are more culturally responsive. And then two, more inclusive in nature. And three, it's like not really causing reduced bias and harm, and ensuring the well-being of the young people and the platforms.
Yeah, and I think that touches really nicely. And as we were kind of closing out the panel, we're looking ahead and we have a trajectory that is not just full of emerging tech issues, but also new regulatory regimes that we have to think about compliance for. So Ava, I'll start with you. Where are we headed with these kind of the trajectory we're going? Where is this going in your eyes, and what should the audience take away from today's talk?
Right. I think that we have a choice as a collective, a lot of these people in this room, to decide where we're headed based on how we react to regulation. So regulation for social media, specifically for children, it's coming. Whether you like it or not, I'm making it happen. And it's going to be a safer place, and we're gonna have a really cool option here, whether companies can say, all right, these regulatory measures, how are we gonna incorporate safety by design? How are we gonna prevent and mitigate harm to young people given our current product? How are we gonna make small tweaks to comply so that we don't get in trouble? That's one option. But another option that I see is how can we kind of start over and build a new product from the ground up that implements these guidelines this regulation is giving us from the very, very start. And I think that that's an inconvenient truth for these companies, because the way that they're doing things right now is it's going well for them. They're making a lot of money. It's really nice, but when we're talking about including young people in the conversation, I think what often happens is you bring a young person in and they say something inconvenient for the company. Because when I ask young people, you know, what do you wish could be changed about social media? They say, I wish I could actually see my friends' posts, or I wish I could put my phone down when I wanted to instead of 30 minutes later. And if we want to make those changes, we're going to really have to look at the revenue model, and we're going to have to attack the revenue model. And I think that it's really important when we're applying this regulation and trying to comply with this regulation that that's okay. It's for the people. It might be inconvenient for a small subset of people, but it's more convenient for everybody else. And I just think that, I mean, we have the opportunity to build products from the ground up that work, that inspire collective action, that connect people to one another, that inspire people to hang out in real life. And I think that's a chance that we can't miss, because if we let this bump of regulation come and go, and we only make small changes to comply, then it's going to be a long time before we have another chance to really have a paradigm shift with how we're accepting the type of social media we get. So I think that's really important. And I mean, Zuckerberg was 20-something when he was in charge of Facebook. I think it's time that we bring in some more 20-somethings to be in leadership roles, not to be on, I'm really glad with you guys' enthusiasm on this, but not to be on like a youth advisory board or a coalition of young people who can contribute some things, but like really young people who intuitively understand the issues and are creative when it comes to problem solving, and don't say, oh, we're gonna have to charge people for social media, because that lacks creativity. But really putting those people in leadership positions, I think that that's where regulation is taking us. And I think we should welcome that with open arms instead of being scared of it.
Ava, I know you're doing the hard work with the Young People's Alliance, but you're touching on something so important, which is really listening to youth. I wonder if any of the other panelists have some thoughts on that.
One, I agree with you, Ava, for completely 100%. You know, like that's like more and more listening to young people is needed. Then if you are in the platform, very specific, if you are like working with the platforms, one key takeaway for the platforms, if you are like having a push notification to expand your business with young people, you should also take a responsibility to send a push notification for their time they are spending on. So you implement one design feature which would help them to be more conscious of how much time they are spending on their platforms. And it could be also like another push notification the platforms can send, saying that like opportunities for green time in their neighborhood. So then there will be design justice can be done within the platform to make sure that there is an impact on people and planet, particularly on young people and planet, happens together in a one single design change the companies can do. And second, with the policies, we need a more transnational and global collaboration is needed. It's not something like, we are making a platforms from the US, and it's like having a global reach. And there are millions and millions of young people do not have a voice, or like even the government do not have a voices. So we need to have a more of a transnational and a global collaboration in making these policies reality, and make sure that it's not only we are talking about the young people from the US, it should be voice out for everyone, particularly young people from the global majority.
Yeah.
I'll stop here, maybe like
No.
I can talk more and
I wish
more.
we could speak more.
I'll be quick because I think there's so many great things that have been said. I think one of the things I'm hopeful about moving forward, because there's so many challenges I think ahead, are that we are actively, to Ava's point, really actively within the industry, continuing to listen and consult with youth. And to your point too, around continuing to build these build features with agency and autonomy in mind. It's a big principle for us at TikTok, and a lot of the way in which we do that is by consulting and actively engaging a lot of folks that are on this panel and that are in this room, and I'm hopeful that we can continue to do that, not just on our team, but also just across the board, that it becomes more of a standard practice, that we're actively incorporating that into our work, and then really continuing to empower those voices, those young voices, into that process. So,
Man, it's hard going last after all that. I would echo everything that's been said. I will also just take it a step further and say it's not enough just to listen to youth. We really need to make sure we're implementing their ideas and stop approaching it from this is too time consuming, or, we're going to lose money, but more of how are we making sure that youth are going to show up on our platform in a positive way, and that they leave with a positive digital mind rather than a negative one. So I love that we're listening to youth. I hope that we do continue that within our industry, but I also hope I see a lot more of those thoughts, of those creative ideas that were mentioned start to be implemented as well.
Ava for president?
Yes.
Thank you so much, panel one. Give it up for this amazing panel.